All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Shalom. Shalom. First and foremost, I'm going to say, where is my phone? I'm going to say, call on Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai by Hashem Rakakwadash. Giving all praises to Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the God of Gods. There is no other God besides him, no other God on earth, and no other God in heaven. Much love to his only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, the Mashiach, the light of this world, the one who died for Israel and covered us with his blood and grafted us into the new covenant, and whom the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ and other names that don't have no power. Much love to the beautiful chosen children among Israel, whoever they may be among the chosen children of Israel. Much love to you. Much love to the beautiful Akim, the brothers of the new covenant. They give us up to dates, they give us proper breakdowns, and they give us lessons and just decoding the Bible. And they do everything in their power to show you how about Shemal Shah that they love him and they fear him. Much love to the beautiful Aquaf, the beautiful women that's in this truth. And whether you got a man or not, you still fear the law, statutes, and commandments to the best of your abilities, and you listen and you learn in silence. All right, coming back at you with another video. Today's title is From Winter to Spring. And it's figuratively, I'm not really talking about the seasons. So, the Bible is full of breakdowns. And from the winter to the spring. So, the spring is a representation of rebirth, new, fresh, and the spring and the winter is a representation of dead and frozen and dormant. So, the times that we in right now, we are at the end of the winter and we're about to enter into the spring. And we gonna get that real quick. And this is second book of Esdras of the Apocrypha, chapter 6, verse 9, and it says, "For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of that follow-up." So a quick news report on what's going on. I guess midterms are coming up for presidency, and Donald Trump is trying his best not to get impeached. So rumor has it he's starting to trigger World War III in order to stop and to shut down the midterm elections, and I guess him possibly leaving office. We all know this is a play. We all know this is like some sort of distraction from what the elites are planning to do. But we do know that they're running out of time. They're running out of power, and everything is crashing. So they have a desire to reboot everything and to set everything back up. All the world's a stage and everybody is characters. So you should know that all these nations that are in cahoots with each other, they all are part of the same plan. So, triggered upon the triggering of the World War III is major depopulation and them looking for some sort of restart, as said on the Georgia Guidestones. They want to limit it to, I think, 5 million people or 500,000 people out of 8.5 billion people on the earth. So, just to let you know, it's not only a part of prophecy, but it's according to their plans, hoping that they succeed in they world domination and reset or whatever. But yeah, I just wanted you to see that. But we are at the end, and Yahweh Shai is coming back for his second coming to glorify Yahweh. So, they are very well aware of prophecy. They know the Bible, they know the true breakdowns, they know all the information that we know. So, they know that they're running out of time and there's not much time to get all of this done. They got 2030 till 2030, which is at least 4 or 5 years to really have all this set in motion in hopes that they succeed, which they won't. They know they won't, but it's worth a try. So, like I said, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that follow. We are very close to the 12th hour, which is the midnight for doomsday. Um, I do believe so, and we are very close to in the end times. Hitting the climax and things setting off. But don't be frightened, because when this destruction comes, we know our liberation comes. We know that our freedom is at hand. We know Yahweh Shai is coming to get those of us that believe. And we are on the precipice of a new beginning, a new restart. So, that would be awesome for you not to die here and for you to live on. So those of them that are the chosen and the elect, they're not going to die anymore. They're going to get immortality, and they'll be able to live on. They'll be able to see the end of the world. They'll be able to see the destruction of Esau. Then they'll see the rebirth of the world, the slavery, the rebirth, the rebuild of Jerusalem. They'll be able to see it all without having to die. So they'll become immortal and live for thousands and thousands of years. They won't have to see death no more. They get their new bodies and all of that, etc. But those of them that don't believe, and those of them that refuse to be saved, they will die on this side, and they will happen to go through. They will be born through the elect. So after they're born through the elect, then they'll be able to live their life, and they'll receive their inheritance, which is immortality and other things, and they will live and they won't remember. But the elect, the ones that don't die in this time, they will remember. They will know everything, and they'll be able to live on. You can only imagine somebody living for 9,000 years, 10,000 years old, and in the eyes of the Lord, that's still a child. It's still a child. You haven't even reached your manhood now. Imagine living for 25,000 years, and you got to understand the numbers are doubled. So it's not like, oh, if I reach 100 years old, if I live to be 100 years old, then that means that I'm old. No, 100 years old is like 1 years old, you know, and in time, in heavenly time, and in immortality, that is nowhere near old, nowhere near. You just at the beginning of your life. So it's going to be a pretty grand life for the children of Israel, pretty grand. And that's a part of their blessings from their sufferings and from all the hardship that we go through here on the earth. When the earth is reborn, we will live heaven on earth, and we won't have to know pain no more suffering, no more struggles, no more darkness, no more danger, no more fear. Everybody's going to love each other. Everybody's going to be in unity. Well, and on top of that, we'll be too holy, and we'll be permanently set apart, and we'll be ruling the world forever, or they say for 1,000 years, but that's pretty 1,000 years really don't matter, because he doesn't say that they're not going to be out of rule. They're going to be ruling forever and ever and ever. So let's get another precept. For those of you that gone through hardships and all these things and suffering, and just going through some pretty bad times, You don't need to worry when you think about the Bible. You think about Yahweh Shem Shai's promise. It makes you happy that when all of this is over with, you'll never have to deal with all this again. Because a lot of us is going through a lot of pressure. Still going through a lot of battles of our own. You know, going through a lot of poverty. Struggling. You by yourself. You alone. You feel like you pushing through this darkness, and you might feel like people are around you and they got your back, but you might have people that have your back, and then again you might not. you know and sometimes the Lord will put you on a solo journey to bring you closer to him. That's how it works, because when a person is around everybody, he don't have time for himself. But when a person is by himself, then he begins to learn himself. He begins to dive deep into himself and learn about his spirituality and learn more about himself. And the spirit of Yahweh is within us. So that's how that works. You begin to open up and you begin to think outside the box. You begin to put yourself first. It makes you stronger when you're by yourself, because Yahweh he has your undivided attention and he can work on you. So we're gonna get that right now for people and their struggles, because I know we be suffering. People be suffering. I've suffered a great deal in my life, and I've been through quite some things on a self journey, and a lot of corruption and a lot of betrayal, a lot of problems, a lot of vulnerability. My own share of battles. And going through, my head is covered in poverty. Having to steal. Having to beg. Because of my addiction. Messing up in school, having to live in a broken home. You know how bad it is to live in a broken home. That is a horrible thing. It's horrible, and literally broken home. Everything is a mess. Roaches everywhere, doors all open. Anything can come in and out of your house. You know, no father. You, a mom that gave up hope, looking for the bottom of a bottle for an escape. You know, brothers and sisters don't know what's up or down, looking for guidance in all the wrong places. Them people calling you the man of the house when the women running and they don't know what they doing. Everything is all destroyed. Nobody listens to you. There's no leadership. Everybody got their own ideals that keep them divided, and you just lost. So I come for some pretty dark things, some pretty bad darkness, and horrible self addiction, me trying to take care of myself out in the streets without having to do harm to people or commit robberies and break into things. You know, I used to be a shoplifter and all of that, and beggar. Oh my goodness, I done came a long way. I can honestly tell you, I've come a long way. It's some real darkness out there. There's some real darkness, whether you be a battle with the world or a spiritual battle with yourself. By the time Yahweh is done and you are in the kingdom of heaven, you will understand the meaning of rest. That right there is, like it says, what's that saying? No rest for the weary is very, very implied. It's so bad to the point to where I don't even have rest when I sleep. I gotta constantly watch myself in my sleep. Sleep with one eye open is a true saying. Whether it be man or it be spirit, I'm constantly watching my back. I'm constantly looking out. And can't tell you how many times I done had paralysis attacks, sleeping paralysis, or a demonic or a spiritual attack. And it gets so bad and so extreme since I was a child. I had realized that I couldn't sleep in the dark and actually be at peace. I had to sleep with some sort of light, because every time I go to sleep in the dark, I'm attacked and I'm harassed, and sometimes waking up with bruises, twisted up in my blanket with my face down in the pillow. Just some real demonic activity, especially around me. I don't understand it. Maybe because I'm spiritually sensitive, or it could be a curse. 9 times out of 10, it's probably a curse, or I don't know, but pretty bad darkness. So let me get this real quick. Besides my personal autobiography, let me get this chapter, because it makes you feel better to know that the Lord is there. Yahweh is with you. He suffers with you, like the Lord say, I suffer. When you suffer, I suffer. When you cry, I cry. When you're mad, I'm when you mad, I'm mad. That's the true meaning of this, of the new covenant, and a part of the old covenant, is that you are connected to Yahweh. You connected to the Lord, and the Lord feels everything that you go through. He understands your suffering. Why? Because He put you there. Israel is meant to suffer because of the past sins that they committed. So, with that being said, we didn't get put in America to do better. We got put in America to suffer, to go through hardship, to take our jail time, to endure our punishment. And it's very literal, but we come into the end of that, and Yahweh Shem Shai is the answer. His true goal is for us to come back and depend on Him and only Him. Like the Lord said, He like a jealous husband waiting on his wife to come home. Okay? So we can get this 30. Ouch. That hurt. Oh, give me a second. Sitting with your legs crossed can be very painful. We can get where are we at? Psalms 30, Psalms chapter 30, verse 1. It says, I will extol thee, O Yahweh, for thou hast lifted me up, and has not made my foes rejoice over me. It says, O Yahweh, I cried unto thee, and thou hast healed me. It says, O Yahweh, thou hast brought up my soul from the grave. Thou hast kept me alive, that I should not go down into the pit. It says, sing unto Yahweh, O ye saints of His, and that's the prophets, and give thanks at the remembrance of His holiness, for His anger endureth but a moment, and in His favor is life. Weeping may endure in the night, but joy will cometh in the morning. And in my prosperity I said, I shall never be moved. Yahweh, by thy favor thou hast made my mountain stand strong, and thou didst hide thy face, and I was troubled. I cried to thee, O Yahweh, and unto Yahweh I made supplication. It says, what profit is in my blood when I go down into the pit? Shall the dust praise thee? Shall it declare thy truth? It says, O Yahweh, and have mercy upon me. Yahweh, be thou my helper. Thou hast turned me from mourning into dancing. Thou hast put off my sackcloth and girded me with gladness. It says, to the end that my glory may sing to praise thee and not be silent, O Yahweh. I will give thanks unto thee forever. And that is very true, because only the Lord can save you from what's coming. Only Yahweh can save you from this pit, from this darkness that's coming, from this evil that's about to take place. You already see it already. Got that news report about that ICE agent shooting that lady. and it was one of their own kind, two Edomites, and the Edomite shot the other Edomite in the car for trying to drive away, and she passed away. You know, you got the warnings from Greenland talking about Russia and China. I do believe it was for Greenland that they was trying to protect Greenland because Greenland is a member of NATO, I do believe. And then you got, you know, the vicious wars that's going on with Israel, the not Israelites that's in Israel against Iran, and that's heating up. And you got the division with the people and our own people being racist towards each other, but at the same time they need help. You know, it's just a lot of things going on right now that, you know, that's hurling to this end time. That's going to be so much chaos and so much darkness, to the point to where when you are saved, you're going to be forever grateful. Because that's the goal. The goal is for you to love Yahweh Bashem Shai. That's really what he wants. He wants love. He wants people to love him, people to care about him, people to worship him, especially our people, mainly our people. You know, you can only understand somebody that's creating worlds and probably creating other races of beings and galaxies and, you know, other alternate realities, you know, and all of this cosmic power and even power unknown that we don't even know about. Because you gotta understand something about Yahweh. The Lord is billion gazillion times so far and so advanced and so beyond us. It's just crazy, you know, and he still has time to think about Israel. So you gotta understand how serious and important it is, because we are the only people that he's ever made a covenant with, a promise with, you know, an agreement with. And he's wanting to fulfill that. So we're gonna get that real quick. Wait, that's the wrong one. Let me go back up. That was perfect. All right, this is Isaiah 49 verse 1, and we can start from the top. It says, "Listen, O Isos, unto me, and hearken ye people from far. It says, Yahweh hath called me from the womb, from the bowels of my mother he hath made mention of my name." And these the prophets, meaning that he deemed them before they came down here, and before they was created, they were already chosen. And that makes sense because when Yahweh created creation, he actually went backwards because everything was blueprint. So he started from the end to the beginning. This might sound confusing, but that's exactly how it happened. So with that being said, he was before these chosen children were created, they were already blessed. They were already written. They were meant to make it. They were meant to receive immortality. They were meant to be by the Lord's side forever. And especially the prophets that go across the Bible, like Samuel, you know, names like Moses, Abraham, Isaac. No way, Isaac is Jehoshai. Um, you got Jacob. You have Isaiah. You got Habakkuk, you got Esdras, John, you got Peter, you got Paul, you got King David, and there's plenty of other prophets that been deemed blessed, and those are angels of Yahweh that were destined to be chosen before they came into the world. So you got to understand how serious this game is. It is very serious. And they were so good because you got two types of angels. You got angels that came from heaven, and you got angels that we came from heaven, but we on the ground. We are ground angels, as they would call them. And these angels were willing to come down in the flesh and leave heaven to come help and to come guide Israel back into the graces of Yahweh. So even though we all from heaven and we all angels, there are rankings. There are rankings. So you got angels on the ground, and you got the angels in the sky, and the angels on the ground are what you call the lower gods. We're the lower gods. And then you got the angels that are the powers in heaven. And you got Yahweh Shai, and then you got the Almighty, which is Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai himself. So it's rankings. But we the lowest of the rank, but we still a part of the family. So that, just because we are the gods on the earth, we are the gods on the earth. That doesn't mean that we're not powerful. But still, we the gods in the flesh. So they were willing to, and we still had to endure and suffer because of what we did wrong. So we were exposed by us leaving Yahweh and leaving the power and being cut off from the power. We exposed ourselves to this world, feeling pain, you know, broke, disease, being killed, casualties and spoils and prisoners of war, you know happen to go through famine, pestilence, the sword, yet again, war, and many other things and other manifolds and dangers of the world. So much so that the Lord, like he said, it hurt him, but he had to do what he had to do. He's the Lord. He had to get his point across. That's what this is all about. So it says, and he hath made my mouth like a sharp sword. So that's spiritual power. In the shadow of his hand he had hid me, and made me a polished shaft. In his quiver hath he hid me. So the more that he endured in this life, the stronger he became. That was the purpose of this poverty. That was the purpose of this. One of the purposes of this captivity and this suffering is to overcome it. We can't like truly overcome it, but to become, get it to become stronger. So it says, and that's the 144,000. That's the chosen getting that spiritual power. That's why he said he had made my mouth like a sharp sword, and in the shadow of his hand he hath hid me, and made me a polished shaft. In his quiver he hath hid me. It says, and said unto me, Thou art my servant, O Israel, in whom I will be glorified. So Israel has a purpose. All the Israelites have a purpose. All of them, whether they be 2/3 or 1/3. So far, right now, he's talking about everybody in general, but he's actually talking to the elect, the chosen, the ones who will listen. Because you got all these Israelites that don't listen. So it says, Then I said, I have labored in vain. I have spent my strength for naught. It says, and in vain, yet surely my judgment. Sorry. It says, my judgment is with Yahweh, and my work is with my God. And now, saith Yahweh, that formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob again to him. It says, though Israel be not gathered, yet shall I be glorious in the eyes of Yahweh, and my God shall be my strength. And he said, it is a light thing that thou might be my service to raise up the tribes of Jacob, And it seemed like one hell of a challenge for us, but in the eyes of the Lord, that's light work. All right, you got to understand the jobs of the angels and the powers in heaven and their jobs and what they got to do every day. You can only, what we going through and the hell that we going through, and how the prophets is calling us day and night to come into the new covenant. How they come into the highways and byways and taking out like an hour or two at a time, how they screaming and yelling out there at the white people, and trying to get our people to come back in. How we look stupid and crazy for out there asking you if you believe in the Bible. Did you know you're Israelite? People think that's stupid, but it's a lot of prophets that's giving it they all. And me, I'm still out there to the best of my abilities because I care about the children of Israel. I care about my people a lot, and I care about the Lord. I do. I don't want to feel like I'm knowing that something is going down like that and I'm not trying to help. And I am. I may not be perfect, but I get out there and I try to help. That's what the Lord sees. You got to put some effort into it. At least try, you know. That way, when I call on Yahweh, he's going to hear me and he's going to save me. Like, you know what? He been putting in some work and he been doing the best he can. He ain't perfect, but I see his heart, you know. He do love me and I do love him. You ain't gotta come on now, you ain't gotta see the Lord to know that he's there. Come on now. The Lord there with you in the spirit every day. He always there when you need to relax, when you got a shoulder to cry on, you know. Somebody there to always listen to your problems. He understands, he can relate, to what's going on. Somebody to give you advice when you're about to do something off, or somebody to let you know when to calm down. He's that conscience in your mind that's guiding you in the right path, and that's something that you want, because that free will thing, that's what's getting a lot of people killed. This pridefulness, that's what's getting them killed. Them not listening, them not having a guide. That's what's getting a lot of our people off. Like it says, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. And that knowledge is to be guided by Yahweh. That knowledge is to be controlled. That knowledge is to be to know that you are being guided rather than you just wandering around trying to follow what you think is your own way. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work. I'd rather be controlled than try to control myself. It sounds strange, but it's true. Because I know that Yahweh is going to guide me on the right path rather than me going somewhere and I go the wrong path and I end up having a quick running into my death, or suffering from some sort of affliction, or hurting myself or becoming lost. You don't want to be like that. So it says, and he said, it is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to restore the preserved of Israel. It says, I will also give thee for a light of to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. So a Gentile is a converted Israelite. That's the 2/3. And when he's talking about the tribes, well, he's talking about all 12 tribes, but he mainly the chosen, the elect, the ones who will listen and come back. And then you got the Gentiles, which is the converted Israelites, the ones that converted Israelites. So, difference between an Israelite saying, "Oh, I'm an Israelite," then when you ask another Israelite what ethnic or race he is, he says, I'm African American. That is converted. That is a converted, that's a Gentile in modern times. So it says that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. It says, then saith Yahweh, the Redeemer of Israel. It says, and his Holy One, to whom man despiseth. It says, to whom the nations abhorreth, to a servant of rulers. Kings shall see and arise. Princes also shall worship because of Yahweh that is faithful. Yeah, he is beautiful and he keeps his promise. He really loves his people. He loves us. He does. He loves us like a father disciplines his child. He's only doing it because he loves you. Now you got to understand. There's a thing that I always say. It's also in the Bible. It says if the Lord chasten the ones that He love. If He don't love you, then He's not gonna do you any harm. He's not. He's not gonna punish you. He's not gonna get in the way. He's not gonna put that in your conscience like, hey, that's wrong. He's not gonna send you any type of affliction or sign. He's just gonna let you do what you want. And if you run into your death, you run into your death. If you get beat within an inch of your life by your enemies, then that's what happens. You happen to get fired from your job, or you plan with these drugs and you overdose off something. The Lord didn't care. He didn't protect you. He didn't tell you to, oh, get off them drugs, don't turn that corner, or be prepared to fight, or you know um don't make this decision, don't make that decision. You're not gonna hear nothing from the Lord. You're not gonna get a dream. You're not, a vision. You're not gonna get nothing. You're just gonna wander to your death or to whatever is prepared for you for a punishment. And they can be extreme, from your bad choices. But if you receive punishment, and you receive chastisement, and the more that you go through, the stronger that you become. The Lord, you actually got Yahweh paying attention to you and watching you and correcting you, and you humbled by your experiences and you learn from it and become better. That's how it works. Like it says, the Lord tries the elect like gold in the fire. The elect gotta go through the fire, man. And the fire is this world. The fire is America, this Babylon. A fire don't gotta burn you to burn you. You get it? You ain't gotta be in literal flames to burn you. Those flames is poverty, death, affliction, oppression. Them flames burn you just like a real flame. It's different ways the Lord can burn you, and it's very terrifying. He can scorch your spirit, he can scorch your body. It's very, when you understand the Bible, you understand the messages, you understand the figurative, you decode this, you understand just how powerful Yahweh is, just what we're going through, what we're enduring. And like they said, hell isn't a place underground. Hell is a living condition. Yes, it is. It's a living condition. Hell is on earth. It ain't underground. And these flames can get hot. And like they said, we in the mouth of the dragon. We are in the belly of the beast. We are in what they call America the iron furnace. You know, this is hell, man. So it says it says that Yahweh is faithful in the Holy One of Israel, and He shall choose thee. It says He shall choose Israel, not everybody of the world. See, I keep running into a lot of people that are not Israelites that feel like that the Lord is with them. No, He's not. He's only with the children of Israel. He's only with the Israelites. If you are not an Israelite, the Lord is not concerned about you. He's not. And that is the truth. The Lord don't love everybody. He only loves the children of Israel. That's it. It's hard it hurts to hear that, but that is the truth. So it says, thus saith Yahweh, in an acceptable time I heard thee, and in the day of salvation have I helped thee, and I will preserve you. It says, and give thee the covenant of the people. No, give thee for a covenant of the people. That's the new covenant that they come in with. It says, to establish the earth, to inherit the desolate heritages. It says that thou mayest say to the prisoners, go forth; to them that are in darkness, show yourselves. They shall feed in the ways, and their pastors shall be in high places. They shall not hunger nor thirst, neither shall the heat nor sun smite them. For he hath mercy on them, and shall lead them Even by the springs of water shall he guide them. So that's the chosen, that's the elect. They're not going to be touched, they're not going to be harmed in these times, they're not going to be destroyed, you know. And it says, they shall not hunger. I already read that part. It says, and I will make all my mountains a way, and my highways shall be exalted. That's right. He gonna be moving people. These mountains represent people and nations, and nobody's gonna be able to stop these Israelites when they get their powers. Nobody's not gonna be able to touch them or do them any kind of harm. It says, behold, these shall come from afar, and lo, these from the north and from the west, and from these the land of Sinim. Sing, O heavens, which is the chosen, the chosen Israelites. It says, and be joyful, O earth, and break forth into singing, O mountains. For Yahweh have comforted his people and will have mercy upon his afflicted. That's right, upon the suffering. Because you got to understand. Hold on, let me shift real quick. Ouch. Woo, I almost pulled my neck. I need one of them old man chairs. You got to understand. You got to understand that when Yahweh Shai came back onto the scene through reincarnation, and he came back when he didn't go to the rich people, you know, he didn't go to the nobles or nobody like that. He didn't go to the priests and the people who called themselves the Sadducees and the Pharisees. He didn't go to them, but where he went was to the in ancient times, the projects and the hoods and the ghettos, to convert the Israelites that were afflicted with pain. You know, a lot of Israelites nowadays are homeless, strung out on drugs. You know, a lot of us are dealing with extreme poverty, not knowing if we're going to eat tomorrow or what's going to happen to us. Israelites that are overworked, you know, a lot of infighting between us over bread and money, you know, a lot of us going crazy, you know, because of the pressure of society, a lot of us killing each other, you know, a lot of Israelites out there killing each other, man. You know, the Lord went to them. You know, Lord was in the drug houses, and, you know, Yahweh Shai was communicating with gangsters and, you know, and killers. You know, this, they don't tell you. You got to use your imagination when you read in this Bible. That's key too, because it paints a very important portrait of what was going on, you know. And, you know, people heard them. You know, they was coming from, some of them came out them drug houses, some of them stopped gang banging, you know, some of them quit their jobs and followed him. You know, a lot of those were the chosen. You know, chosen come from different avenues of life. You know, some of them stopped worshiping the false gods and started following him, you know, along with the prophets. You know, some of them had their kids, took their kids along with them. They abandoned their homes and they followed Yahweh Shai. That's how it works, you know, and that's what it was going on. He was saving a lot of people. You know, he was helping them. He was pulling them out of them ghettos, man. And people was abandoning all that shit. You know, they just wanted to follow him. They wanted to be with him, and he took care of them. He took care of all of them, and he didn't mind it. Sometimes he got a little bit tired and he wanted to be by himself, which ain't nothing wrong with that, you know. But ultimately, he didn't give up on them. He loved them all, you know. He cared about them all, and the prophets too. He cared about them all, and you know, that's what it really was about. He showed his love. That was the passion. You know, Yahweh Shai was crying because he saw the condition of what we was going through, and, you know, what was happening to us. You know, men getting beat on the street. You know, our women prostituting. Uh, some of us are bums. You know, sleeping in garbage and freezing outside, begging for change. He saw, kids, you know, schooling, they didn't have pretty not rags, rags on their back taking care of them, and not I mean rags on their back, running around barefooted, back in ancient times, you know how the ghetto is, but he it hurt him. It did. You gotta read that. You gotta read the Bible. It really hurt him to see his people like that. That hurt. And he wanted to do everything in his power to help. That's why he did everything. The ultimate thing that he did was to die for it. The chosen, not the rest of those wicked elite Israelites. The chosen, the ones that left all that behind and followed him. That's who he died for. That's who he died for. And like I said, they came from all walks of life. Some of them was murderers. Some of them was rich. Ultra rich. It's possible. Some of them was some of them had family, had disagreements, abandoned their wife, abandoned their kids to go be with him. Some of them was homeless. They realized that he was the home, and they followed him. That's how it worked. Some of them was worshiping different gods and was in secret societies and cults. And when they heard him, they abandoned all that. So you gotta understand the importance of Yahweh Shem Shai and him being magnified through his son Yahweh Shai during his passion. Because he cared. He put in work. And I'm telling you, he put in work. Some serious work. So much so he was a threat to all nations. He was a threat to everything. He was a threat to the current churches and all that. He really tore a lot of that down when he was there. So yeah, I'm trying to tell you, the Lord loved us. He loved them. So it says, so sing, O heavens, and be joyful, O earth, and break forth into singing, O mountains, for Yahweh have comforted his people. That is the truth. To know that Yahweh Shem Shai loves us and he wants to be with us. Because that's what the Bible is about. The Bible is about Yahweh loving Israel. He in love with Israel, and Israel is a beautiful and becomely woman in the eyes of Yahweh Shem Shai. And the Lord is a groom for his bride, a beautiful groom for his bride, a husband, that is a love story. Very, very powerful love story. And the woman, the woman Israel, the one that she in love with is a God. That is the truth. Well, he is the God, the highest of the highest. There is nothing higher than him, but he is the God, and very, very powerful, very, very majestic, very, very mysterious. Her groom is coming to spirit her away. That's what it is. She gonna be spirited away by her groom, and this is her destiny. This is the will of Yahweh Shem Shai. This is the truth. She's gonna be spirited away by Yahweh Shem Shai. And there's nothing that anybody can do about it. Nothing. And he's coming for what is his. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So that's the comfort, knowing that he's coming to save you. So it says, and will have mercy upon his afflicted. But Zion said, Yahweh hath forsaken me, and my Lord hath forgotten me. Can a woman forget her sucking child, that she should not have compassion on the son of her womb? Yeah, they may forget, yet I will not forget you. That's sad. The Lord said, I didn't forget. I remember, I remember you. Like they said, a woman can abandon her child like it's nothing. But the Lord said, I didn't abandon you. You just received punishment. That's all that happened, but I didn't abandon you. So it says, behold, I have graven these upon the palms of my hands. Thy walls are continually before me. meaning that every time the Lord look at his hands, he got Israel inscribed on them. That's how strong the promise is. Every time he working on something, every time he's creating something, every time he's handling some sort of business, every time he's in courts, every time he wake up, well, he don't go to sleep, but just figuratively, every time he get up and set up for the day, he look at his hands and like, nah, I gotta get my people from down there. I gotta get my people out of there. But he has to live by his rules and his promises and what is written and his prophecies. All that, he can't break them. He doesn't break them. It cannot happen. It has to happen. Everything from the suffering and all the things that we went through were meant to happen. But one of those promises that he can't wait to get to is the deliverance. That's what he can't wait. It says, thy children shall make haste, thy destroyers, and they that made thee waste shall go forth of thee. It says, lift up the eyes round about, and behold, all these gather themselves together and come to thee. It says, as I live, says Yahweh, thou shalt surely clothe thee with them all, as with an ornament, and bind them on thee as a bride doeth. So the same people that used to pursue us is going to be the ones that serve us. They're going to be decorations for our clothes. That's funny. That's funny, but it's true. It says, as with an ornament, and bind them on thee as a bride doeth. That's right. All of that, all the slaves and all the royalty and all of these enemies and all these sworn leaders and these terrifying kings, they gonna be nothing but ornaments for the children of Israel, just to make you look good. It's a beautiful thing. It says, for thy waste and thy desolate places in the land of thy destruction shall even now be too narrow by reason of the inhabitants, and they that swallowed thee up shall be far away. That's right. It says, the children which thou shalt have after that thou hast lost the others. Right, because it's going to be a lot of death. It's going to be a lot of death. The people going to be losing their kids during this war. Their grandfathers, their best friends gonna be dying in their face. Husband get hit by some bullets and he can't make it. He let y'all run forward and you dare not turn your head. You too scared. You carrying your kids. You happen to stumble and drop one kid and gotta take the other kid because these soldiers is coming and them bullets is flying and these explosions is hitting, these buildings is crumbling. You gotta return fire, and you willing to sacrifice your life for the people that you care about and to let them go. It's a lot of shit that's about. It's a lot of stuff that's about to go down, man. I'm just trying to paint that picture and just how bad it's about to be, But for the elect, they know what it takes, and it takes sacrifice. Sadly, what are you willing to give to save your life? What are you willing to sacrifice? Some of these elect will give up their families. Some of them will give up their children. Some of them will give up their wives. What are you willing to sacrifice? Because those are the non-believers, and the Lord sees them as expendable. The Lord don't care about them, and they will become a just sacrifice in the place of I do believe in the place of they sins, they will become a sacrifice. It's gonna be a reckoning. They gonna have to answer, and the Lord's Spirit gonna comfort them. So the Israelites know, the chosen know, we out of there. Forget about it. If they don't love Yahweh, if they don't care about them like we do, we out. Forget about them. We'll get a new family. I'll get new children. I'll get new sons. I'll get a new wife. I'm trying to tell you, because it's gonna come down to that moment where you're gonna have to give them up. You're gonna have to give the people that you love up to move forward. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna fucking hurt. But it's gotta happen. Either your life or theirs. The Lord is gonna have you choose. It's gonna get that deep. Either you want to come and be with me, or you gonna stay and die with them. You know, it's that you gotta understand. Israel, the Israel is a becomely woman, and her bride is the highest of the high. No, her groom is the highest of the highest. The God of gods, Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. He's not a joke. He's very serious, and he's very authoritative. It's not a joke. This is serious, and he's extremely powerful. Nowhere near human. Nowhere near human. He doesn't understand he created certain concepts, but he doesn't understand certain concepts. So when he calls Israel a wife, he's including the males too and the females. And some people may be like, oh, that's gay, or oh, the Lord likes men, and in the eyes of Yahweh, that's not funny. He don't understand. He doesn't understand that concept. He's nowhere near human. He's not gonna he doesn't see you that way. That's why he calls the daughters, when he calls the prophets, he calls them the daughters of Israel. They know different than females too. Not in that sort of way, like a feminine way, but in a spiritual way, like the Lord said, because regardless of the fact he's talking about Israel as a becoming beautiful woman, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. It doesn't matter. The Lord is just, I can only describe, he's not human. He don't think certain things is funny. That shit is real serious. Now, you laughing and all of that, the Lord ain't gonna laugh. He don't even, I don't know. Very scary, very powerful, very authoritative. But ultimately, like the Lord say, I'm a loving, good person. And, I didn't come here to hurt you. I came to save. So it says, the children which thou shalt have after thou hast lost the other shall say again in thy ears, the place is too strait for me. Give me a place that I may dwell. Right. And the straight path means it's too difficult. It says, then thou shalt say in thy heart, who hath begotten me these? Seeing I have lost my children and I am desolate, a captive, and removing to and fro. It says, and who hath brought up these? It says, behold, I was left alone. These were had they been. These where have they had they been? Thus saith Yahweh, behold, I will lift up my hand to the Gentiles, and set up my standards to the people. And they shall bring their sons in their arms, and their daughters shall be carried upon their shoulders. And the kings shall be thy nursing fathers, and their queens thy nursing mothers. They shall bow down to thee with their face toward the earth, and lick up the dust of thy feet. Thou shalt know that I am Yahweh, for they shall not be ashamed that wait for me. Right? He's gonna honor his name. For his name's sake, he gonna honor that. He coming. And it's not a joke. It is very serious. Like the Lord said, them people gonna be kissing your feet. Them people, when you wake up in the morning, they gonna have your outfit ready, and they gonna kneel down, and they gonna put your pants on, and you gonna open your arms, and they gonna put on your shirt. When you go into the bath, you gonna be bathed. You ain't even gonna have to scrub yourself. This is how extreme the slavery is coming for those of them that did Israel wrong. The white man that did them wrong, real wrong. So all the way to you going it's crazy. The Israelites gonna be so rich when it come to the females. They not even gonna have to raise their own kids. They gonna have Edomites, white women, being surrogate mothers and taking care of their kids while um while the Israelite women do what they want. They go and please their man. They getting ready to go to balls and dances. You know, they driving around checking on different estates. They commanding their slaves to do this and do that. They going to go kick it with they husbands many wives, because the men is gonna have multiple women in that time. They're gonna have so many wives it's not even gonna be funny. And she's gonna be busy, and she's gonna be happy to be with that one man. Everything is gonna be in its proper order. But I'm just letting you know how extreme the slavery is gonna be. It's gonna be extreme. So it says, and like he said, for they shall not be ashamed that wait for me. He gonna make good on his promise. 10 talents for 10 cities, treasures upon treasures for the prophets that stood high, and for the chosen, you know, palaces made of gold, streets paved in gold. This is going to be real. Jerusalem is going to be remade, and Israel going to be remade, and they're going to be golden cities. They're going to be golden cities. Okay? It's a bundle pack. It's that serious. So this is business. You got to understand, heaven is a business too. The Lord is a businessman. And this is a part of the new covenant's contract. This is all a part of that contract. So it says, it says, um, it says, shall the prey be taken from the mighty? It says, or the lawful captive delivered. It says, but thus saith Yahweh, even the captives of the mighty shall be taken away, and the prey of the terrible shall be delivered, for I will contend with him that contendeth with me, and I will save thy children, and I will feed them that oppress thee with their own flesh. That's true. The horrible things that's going to happen to these white people is going to be bad. And they shall be drunken with their own blood, as with sweet wine. And all shall know that I am Yahweh, thy Savior, and thy Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob. Jacob. You didn't say nobody else. And one more scripture, and I'm out. It says, Isaiah chapter 40, verse 14 through 16. It says, with whom took he counsel, and who instructed him, and taught him in the path of judgment, and taught him knowledge, and showed him in the way of understanding. It says, behold, the nations are a drop of a bucket, and are counted as the small dust of the balance. Behold, he hath taken up the isles as a very little thing, And Lebanon is not sufficient to burn, nor the beast thereof sufficient for a burnt offering. And the beast represents the nations. It says, all nations before him are as nothing, and they are counted to him less than nothing and vanity. To whom will then ye will to whom then will ye liken Yahweh? Or what likeness will you compare him to unto? It says, the workman melteth a graven image, and the goldsmith spreaded it with gold and cast it in silver chains. He that is so impoverished that he hath no oblation chooseth a tree that will not rot. He seeketh to him a skillful workman to prepare a graven image, that it shall not be moved. Have you not known? Have you not heard? Hath it not been told to you from the beginning? It says, have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, who stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spread them as a tent to dwell in. It says, who bringeth princes to nothing, and maketh the judges of the earth as vanity. It says, yeah, they shall not be planted. Yeah, they shall not be sown. Yeah, their stock shall not take root in the earth, and he shall also blow upon them, and they wither, and the whirlwind shall take them away as stubble. That's that nuclear day. It says, to whom will then ye liken me? Or shall I be equal, saith Yahweh? Yeah, because you got a lot of people, a lot of these nations talking about they gods, and the gods that they worship, and they holy like Yahweh, but none of them are. Nobody, you can't compare a man to Yahweh, or no fake images, no false gods to the Lord. It says, lift up your eyes upon high, and behold who hath created these things, who bringeth out their hosts by number. It says, he calleth them all by the name, by names, by the greatness of his might. For he is strong in power, not one faileth. Why sayest thou, O Jacob, and speakest, O Israel, my way is hid from Yahweh, and my judgment is passed over from my God? Hast thou not known, hast thou not heard, that the everlasting God, Yahweh, the creator of the ends of the earth, fainteth not, neither it is weary. There is no searching of his understanding. So when you talk about the creator of the ends of the earth, you're supposed to look around you and look at the creations like the sun, like the moon, like the sky that never falls. They call that the sky the firmament, or the first body of water, and then or the ocean, a vast ocean, and then you got the second ocean on the earth, and then you have these waters are separate, held together by the powers, by the heavens, and by his word. You look at the trees, you look at the great sea of sand, the Sahara Desert. You look at the great sea of ice, in Antarctica, the North Pole. You look under the sea, you look inside the abyss and how deep the ocean is, and how no man can reach the bottom of it. You got to have this understanding. The Tornado Alley, with all them winds and high velocities and them giant F1s and F5 tornadoes. You got to look at creation. You got to look at everything around you. The beauty of the animals. A golden orb weaver spider that they webs shoot out metal. You got chameleons that can change colors. You got giant squids. Giant kraken squids. You got poisonous lizards. You got birds that can speak English or different languages. You got intelligent monkeys. They considered the people of the forest. You got these animals that can survive some extreme conditions, man. Polar bear and negative 35 degrees heat way in the blizzard with the penguins. They survive in blizzard storms that'll kill a person in seconds. You know, you got all kinds of creations. Nuclear bombs that can take out cities. You know, and within 10 20 seconds, 10 20 minutes. You know, you got the guns. It's a lot to creation. I don't want to keep going, but I'm about to close this out. It says, there is no searching of his understanding. He giveth power to the faint, and to them that have no might increase of strength. That's spiritual power for the chosen. Even the youth shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fail. But they shall wait upon Yahweh, and shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with the wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. That's spiritual power for the chosen. A lot of this is going to the chosen, so I hope you guys understand that. Wait, let me see. All right, this is the last scripture, and I'm out. This is Isaiah chapter 40, 12 through 27. It says, who else has held the ocean in his hand? It says, who has measured off the heavens with his fingers? This is extreme power. I'm trying to tell you. Extreme power you ain't never seen before. Who else knows the weight of the earth, or has weighted the mountains and hills on a scale? Man, like Mount St. Helens and Mount Everest, Himalaya Mountains, Yellowstone Mountain. Who is able to advise the Spirit of Yahweh? Who knows enough to give him advice or to teach him? Damn, that's deep. It says, has Yahweh ever needed anyone's advice? Does he need instruction about what is good? Did someone teach him what is right or show him the path of the justice? It says, for all nations of the world are but a drop in the bucket. They are nothing more than dust on the scales. He picks up the whole earth as though it were a grain of sand. It says, all the wood in the Lebanon's forest and Lebanon's animals would not be making enough to make an offering worthy of our God Yahweh. It's talking about people, for sure. I think Lebanon is talking about, it's talking about people. And it could be referring to the nations. It says the nations of Yahweh, no, the nations of the world are worth nothing to him. I'm trying to tell you, this covenant, and he not only loves Israel, he has an obsession over them. He doesn't care about anybody else. It's like a man that fell in love with a woman. He sees nothing but that woman, nothing but her. In his eyes, they count for less than nothing, mere emptiness and froth. It says, to whom can you compare Yahweh? Oh, it's about to be over. I'm trying to tell you, the Lord don't care about the rest of these people. When he talks about the world goes into a certain word, which is talking about certain people. I think it goes into cosmos, and cosmos says it's certain people, a certain group of people. It says, what image can you find to resemble him? Right, because there's so many images of what people say. This is God, that's God, and that's not. Can he be compared to an idol formed in a mold or overlaid with gold and decorated with silver chains? Or if people are too poor for that they might at least choose wood that won't decay and a skillful craftsman to carve an image that won't fall down. Haven't you heard? Don't you understand? Are you deaf to the words of God? Right. He's telling these other nations and these people that want to join us Israelites. Are you stupid? Don't you understand? It says the words he gave before the world began. Are you so ignorant? Yahweh sits above the circle of the earth. It says the people below him seem like grasshoppers to him. It says he spreads out the heavens like a curtain and makes it a tent for them. It's, it's how small the world is. He judges the great people of the world and brings them all to nothing. That's what's happening to the white man. He come into nothing. It says they hardly get started, barely taking root when he blows on them and they wither, right, with the beast system and the grain of sand and a new world order. They're not even gonna take off. As soon as it gets to the top, he gonna knock it right down. It says the wind carries them off like a chaff. That's the nuclear day. To whom will you compare me? Who is my equal? Right, because the white man is challenging the Lord and he's trying to be God. He's trying to be him. And the Lord is saying, who's my equal? There is no one who's my equal who can contend with Yahweh. It's very dangerous to challenge Yahweh. It's very dangerous. It says, ask the Holy One. It's very dangerous because the Lord don't fight fair. It's never fair with him. You're not even gonna get a chance. It says, because the Lord is the Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is a God. It's God. He's gonna fight like a God. Unfair, overpowering, no mercy. It says, the wind carries them off like a chaff. To whom will you compare me? Who is my equal? Ask Yahweh. He look up into the heavens, who created all the stars. He brings them out like an army, one after another, calling each by its name. And he's talking about the elect, the chosen ones, and Israel themselves, because they compare it to stars. It says, because of his great power and incomparable strength, not a single one is missing. O Jacob, how can you say Yahweh does not see your troubles? O Israel, how can you say that God ignores your rights? And with that, calling Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai and the name Yahushai, I just wanted to get a clip in, but it ended up being a whole damn hour. But it's okay, Got it. You got to hear it, This is for those of us that are listening, And Yahweh Hashem Yahushai is understanding what you go through. You go through sufferings every day. And, with that, it's on to the next episode. Much love to those of them that are listening.